Glad to have you back. And if you're just joining us, well, this is the last segment of Nigeria Decides, and we're talking about agriculture, isn't it, Evie?
Absolutely.
And this time around, we're looking at youth involvement in agriculture as well as having foreign partnerships as well. But at the end of the day, you can't talk food security without having a strong involvement of the youth.
And just to put you on the spot, you did tell us about your farm.
I actually had a farm, and it wasn't so much of a big success, but I hope our conversation would actually lure young people to go into agriculture, mechanized farming especially.
That's right. Yes, and of course we have with us Nkiru Obarekes, the CEO, Envirogo Farms, soilless greenhouse farm in Lagos State, the first in Lagos as it is.
The biggest.
No, not the first, but the biggest.
But the biggest.
Biggest greenhouse farm in Lagos State.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, and we also have Akin Alabi. He is an agribusiness coach, Corporate Farmers International. We have just the right people to talk about youth involvement in agriculture. Now, how broad is the involvement of young people in agriculture at this present time? You're young people in agriculture, and I'm sure you can give us an understanding of the number of young people in agriculture, involved in agriculture at this time. Let's start with you, Nkiru.
Unfortunately, we don't have lots of young people involved in agriculture because of the way agriculture has been set up in Nigeria. You know, the youth of now, they are technological based. A lot of them are educated, they're exposed. They can go on the internet and check what is happening. But the way agriculture is run now in Nigeria, which is still the agrarian way, people are still using hoe, cutlasses. We don't have a lot of mechanized agriculture, drip irrigation and the rest. We don't have a lot of youth wanting to get involved in agriculture. It's not exciting. It's not as nice as watching the video, playing music and all that. So unfortunately, the government is not doing much, or whatever is happening, we're not getting a lot of youths who are ready to take over from the aging population of farmers which we have now.
Yeah, but then if, from what she has said, the fact that agriculture is definitely something that we should be thinking of, and if you're involved in it, it tells me that there's a lot of promise looking at you. Yeah. So how come we don't really have, because I believe where there's a will, there's a way. If a young person actually wants to do something, even when they're not encouraged, they can. So what is still keeping young people away from agriculture?
All right, thank you very much. I must tell you that the narrative is changing, you know, compared to where we were and to where we are now, compared to youth involvement in agriculture. I'll give you a scenario. We have a platform called Agri-Campus Tour by Corporate Farmers. And we've been able to cover about 4 different schools last year during our tour program called Agri-Connect. Now, we observe that students love agriculture, but something is missing, the passion. So we need to create the passion inside agribusiness and let them see how beautiful and attractive agriculture is. For example, one of the schools we went to last year, which actually was University of Ilorin, you'll be shocked that the second largest faculty is the Department of Agriculture. The second largest faculty.
As in population?
Yes, currently. So meaning that youths are actually studying agriculture.
But it's not just to study it, it's to practice.
The practice, yeah, they're involved in it. That's the first level. They're involved in it. But again, they need to start creating more platforms in different value chains. For example, I can study agriculture, but I can end up owning 2-3 trailers that will be able to move commodities from Lagos, from Nasarawa to Lagos State. I'm involved in the value chain. I could say, yes, I studied agriculture, but I want to end up working in a bank. You know, develop business proposals for farmers. I could say, yes, I studied agriculture, but I want to also develop the technology aspect of it. Able to build in likes of drones, likes of technology that would help and enhance farmers. For example, today, we have young guys that have built in apps that would actually help farmers to do soil tests easily.
Nice.
So we know that, okay, if I'm planting on this is going to be my yield at the point of my harvest. And also we have apps today that will determine numbers of rainfalls you will need on a particular commodity. So these are areas in which youth actually get involved in agriculture. So not necessarily it has to be the practical farming anymore, but other aspects in which they're actually involved. And that's why we use the AgriCampus store to expand the minds of young agripreneurs.
Well, interestingly, I would like to ask, what did you study in school? Because if you have this much passion for agriculture and you say you don't have to necessarily be a farmer, then where did the passion come from?
Okay, let me give you my genesis.
Okay.
Actually, I started with insurance, as an actuarial. Then from there, I moved into accountancy. Then from there, I moved into technology. But something was missing inside of me. I felt there's a need for me to take life beyond what I studied. And I looked at myself, what other sector is available within the entire ecosystem that actually impacts more to any generation is agriculture.
Now, Nkiru, quickly, I would like to also have your thoughts, because at the end of the day, we say education is an integral part of whatever is supposed to grow or thrive. Now, you work within the greenhouse field. What sort of areas do you think should be attractive for the average youth who wants to go into agriculture in Nigeria, especially with that field? We understand agriculture is still one of the emerging markets, but what area should we be building our human resource to feed into that area?
I think every aspect of agriculture the youth can fit in. The only thing I would advise is that anything they are doing, they should do with a bit of technology. So as I'll say, when I tell people I'm a farmer, I say I'm not my grandmother's type of farmer. I'm farming with technology. Like so if you're going to do crop production, you try to integrate drip irrigation, meaning you can grow your crops all year round. And before you start your crop, before you start anything you do, have a little bit of, what will I say, education. And now with the internet, you can go online and do everything. They have what will have good agricultural practices, meaning that's the right way to do things. So as a young person who's obviously educated and can get information, anything you're going to do, make sure you're practicing, you're using good agricultural practices. If you want to go into animal husbandry, find where they do it. There are YouTube videos you can look at. What I just say, every part of agriculture is important, is growing. There's so many things on the value chain, even processes. But anything they want to do in agriculture, they should make sure they have a bit of technology in it. That will help them to increase their production. And that's actually also help them love whatever they're doing.
Now, I would like to know how you started, how long you've been doing this for, and how it has been just in a short,
I'm trained as an engineer. I'm an electrical electronics engineer, specializing in instrumentation. So I started my career working for an oil company. So I worked for an oil company. I lived abroad, did a lot of things. Then after a while, I got tired. I left. I got my MBA in Canada and came back. When I was coming back, it was a case of, what will I do? Then I realized that everybody must eat. Even if you're sick and you buy drugs, they'll tell you eat before you take your drugs. If you go to school, if you haven't eaten, whatever they are saying, you're not understanding.
And if you're on a program like this, I know it.
And then I noticed the middle class was increasing. We had such an insatiable desire for imported goods. So we said, why don't you produce these things here? Because we have one of the best environments to produce it. So I decided to think about agriculture, but I wanted a part of agriculture that was scalable and which I could use technology to do. And another thing was that when I was growing up, my mother farmed. I grew up in the East. She wasn't a farmer, but everybody had their farm. So even subsistence farming, all our holidays were centered around farming, which we didn't like. So that's why I always tell people I'm not doing my grandmother's type of farming. I saw how she did it. She didn't make more money. It was actually more like to subsidize their income. But at least I was exposed to a bit of farming. And which is what I'll say, that if we also want to bring in youth into farming, we have to start exposing them very early. Practically all the secondary schools, I'm talking for Lagos, none has a farm. But they are learning farming. They're learning agriculture. And
they're writing it in WAEC.
They're writing it in WAEC. I have students now, schools coming to visit my farm, and the children are so excited. I'm into crop production. When they come, I try to get them to visit a poultry, a fishery, and they have never seen this. Some of them think chicken comes just from the freezer. They don't even understand it. Some of them were crying, some were excited. They've never seen this. So we can't be saying we want the youth to get into agriculture if you then start exposing them really very early.
So what sort of integration do you expect within our extracurricular activities and then still having the classroom education as well, especially teaching agriculture in practical terms?
When we're going to school, for every school that taught agriculture, there was a farm. There was a practical course. You don't have to have 200 chicken, but you can have 10. It's just a little coop. Chicken don't need much. Show children, even then when we were growing up, they used to give us maize and tell us to plant it in cotton wool and see if it will grow. So they don't have to be big patches, but they have to be at least little. And lots of we agripreneurs are willing to have students come and work with us and even support them. So no matter how small the patch is, every school teaching agriculture needs to have some form of agricultural production. If you don't have space for crop production, do chicken farming. You can even do fishery. They have basins that they used to do fish farms. You don't have to have a dugout thing. But it's important you expose them to the practical part of agriculture, not just what they're reading in the books.
Actually, now, you've been in business for quite a while talking about agriculture. What have been some of the bottlenecks that you've experienced, and how do we then begin to address these issues and then make agriculture now not just the hoe and cutlass, but making it much more attractive to have a larger influx of Nigerian youth participating?
Thank you very much. You see, the first thing we identified as a major gap is information. That's a major one. Most of our youth these days still have the mindset that if you are into the agribusiness sector or you're playing the value chain, you are probably a poor person. You know, you're not. The youth of these days need to get that money fast, but they don't understand that agriculture, number one, is a fast money spinner if you understand it. If you understand it, yes, if you understand it. That's why for us, we are trying to change the narrative of every youth that, look, you don't have to till the ground. For example, let's look at extension services, media. There's what we call agri-media that you can actually play in, and making money from. What you need to do is simple. Today we have internet, we have social media spaces. I have a couple of friends that are really into that space. For example, there's a lady called Yewande Kazim, and that's where she's playing, agri-media space. So every agricultural event where you see, where you have in Lagos today, she's holding it. She has a segment where she features stakeholders in the agribusiness sector, and she's making her money. She didn't study agriculture, she's a media person, and she's making her money through the media. That's another angle. Another angle in terms of, if you're good in terms of writing business analysis, you could develop analysis for a particular farm and say, look, guys, you can invest XYZ in this, and this is your return on investment. For example, what Farm Cloud is doing today is an example out of it. You don't have to be the entire farmer, but understand basic dynamics, calculations. If I'm investing one area into this, look at the risks, then number of years, this is going to be your returns. These are areas that youth can actually play in, but there is no information.
But you're expecting that anytime soon we would have the government take a very drastic step when it comes to paying focus to agriculture, because you look at the likes of Cuba and then they wanted medical personnel, they got it. You look at China, they wanted to reduce the population, they got it. What sort of policies do you think we should have in place to have the youth participate more actively in agriculture across the various value chains?
There's already this program we have called NYSC. The emphasis on sending youth corpus. Now I hear he's sending them to schools to teach. Why is it not agriculture and education? You already have, for every year, at least I know there should be at least 1 million or 2 million people going for youth service. So imagine having every farmer have a youth attached to them to support them.
Exactly.
That's going to change the agri sector.
I'm sure the coppers are not happy.
No, I mean, yes, they won't be. But even but I'm also happy teaching. Many of them also not happy being sent to classrooms to teach. So at least with agriculture, they're going to take a life skill out. Many of them might not become farmers. Many of them, but I mean, when I mean attach them, find in the value chain where they can. And the youth think differently from how we think. They think outside the box.
Exactly.
When we say this can be done, first of all, they ask you why. You've never thought about it. So some of the problems we're having, they can come with a holistic look and tell us we shouldn't be doing this because it can be done this way.
Okay, so what kind of leaders should we demand and vote for on Saturday? Coming back to you, Aki.
Well, for me, it's simple. A leader that understands his people. You must understand.
In terms of what we want to achieve in agriculture,
sector.
yes.
Agriculture is quite large. I will still say that for me personally, the person I still respect the most in the entire agribusiness sector is still the former Minister of Agriculture, which is now the president of AFDB.
Yes, Akinwumi Adesina. Okay.
You know, he brought in innovation into agriculture, which led about creating different platforms for youth to see agriculture as being beautiful and sexy, if I can use that word. Yes, he created a couple of things. For example, RITA, he breeded the entire agripreneur platform for the RITA. And now we have millions of them spread across Africa. These are the kind of leaders we want that will drive and move youth to find interest and gain interest more in the agribusiness sector. Yes, our minister is doing well, but we need more leaders who have the passion, that drive to further move the agri sector to the next level.
So what's your advice now, Nkiru, to Nigerians as we go to the polls on Saturday? What kind of leaders, because there's been debates, people have told us what they want to do. I really don't know if we have really harped on the importance of agriculture to all of these people and extracted promises and possibly, you know, told them that we will remove them if they don't do what they have to do to make Nigeria a liberal economy and not a mono economy as it is today. So what kind of leaders should we demand and vote for on Saturday?
The thing is that the leaders, most times the leaders we choose, we don't even know who they're going to choose to work with them, because whether it's Atiku or Buhari or whoever wins, it's not him going to make all the decisions. He's still going to bring out people who are going to work with him. Yeah. Maybe before we elect them now, we should make them tell us who are the people they're going to choose to work with them. That might help in decision making, because for us, we're trying to attract young people to agriculture, but we're having septuagenarians and octogenarians. There's no how. We don't think the same way. They don't think the way they're thinking. So the thing Nigerians should look beyond the person, look at what they say they will do, look at what they have done before, because the two major frontliners have all been part of government. See what they promised they would do and what they had done, and use that, because I mean, you have something to fall back and you already have the history to use and decide on what we think they can do. But no matter who wins, please, for the agricultural sector, we want a young, vibrant person. You can't be attracting young people 30, 40, and you're bringing people 70, 80 with 70, 80 ideas. It just will not work.
Talking about things that work, now let's look at foreign partnerships. At the end of the day, technological exchange and then that of financial know-how is always important.
Yes.
And to grow the agribusiness, you cannot necessarily raise all the resources you need, and you have to be attractive, you have to be competitive to have that edge to bring in foreign investment. So how do you think we're supposed to be thinking this time around and partnering with other advanced countries? Look at China, for example. They're ready to invest, but in what areas should we be having our conversations directed to? Look at the USA and a whole lot more. What sort of engagement do you think we should be having when it comes to partnerships?
Well, typically when we go to partners, we typically like to ask them for money. But because we have an accountability issue, they're not willing to give us money. For every crop, for every sector in the agricultural sector, there's a country that excels in it. So let me use an example. The Netherlands excels in milk production. So you call them and tell them, we don't need your money. Send us retired farmers who want to give back to society to come and partner with our Nigerian farmers and raise the next generation of cattle that will increase our milk production. France is known for poultry. Send us your experts. Send us good chicks, send us good eggs. Let us start from there. But a lot of these people also, some of the issues they have is there's no food security without regular security. They're not willing to come because we don't have a security issue all over the country. So no matter what we do, we also have to make sure that we have our security fixed. We also have to fix the perception of accountability. Transparency, we lack a lot of transparency. There's a program I wanted to do with Lagos State government that we wanted to bring in foreign partners, but the issue was, it's a government program and they lack transparency. So a lot of these foreign partners are wary of partnering with government. So another thing governments could do is also hand some of this project off to the private sector, or have a private sector anchor it with government support, the private sector is much more easier to get foreign partners to come in because they know they can hold the private sector accountable more than they can hold the government accountable.
And Aki, your thoughts as well on having exchange, technological exchange, and as well as financial know-how to make our different sectors, especially within the agricultural value chain, grow.
Yeah, exactly. I'll buy into what you just said. That's just the solution. You know, we need to just exchange those knowledge, you know, across countries, as you just said. Basically, in terms of technology, for example, we could exchange it from advanced countries like Japan, China, who have done well, you know, in building the agricultural system through technology. You know, bring them in here, train the young agripreneurs, let them know what is trending in terms of technology, improving agriculture. You know, these are things that we need at this point in time, and also to improve our agricultural sector. It's very, very paramount. It's not about the money, you know, because, yeah, they may not give you, but when you exchange knowledge, you know, exchange ideas from foreign partners down to Nigeria, it's better and it works for everybody. So I agree with what you just said.
Now, of course, we are marrying the foreign policy conversation with the youth involvement. So let us also talk about how young people can leverage the opportunity of foreign markets, you know, to push the boundaries. Because an ordinary farmer is comfortable with the village market, but a young person wouldn't relax. So I know that young people are doing a lot, but can you give us an idea of what more young people can do to ensure that Nigerian goods, you know, across value chain is pushed forward, and then we get more foreign exchange?
Okay, there are several international trade programs currently going on in the country. For example, one is Fair Trade coming up very soon, and other exhibitions, international exhibitions are coming up very soon. So these are areas where young agripreneurs can come and showcase what they're doing. You know, for example, last year I was a particular exhibition where a young guy did, it's called Niger Drone, you know, and I did a couple of things in terms of the technology, and he showed them, and it was bought into. You know, from there it was taken overseas, and he was able to establish further. You know, and we have other younger ones that are doing several things, app development. It's just about able to have that platform to showcase. It's as simple as that. Have a platform to showcase, and from there you get exported.
Now, he just touched on exporting as well. We are quick to export the raw materials, but now what sort of engagement should we also have when we are talking about value addition? Because the worth of your cocoa beans when you export is much less than what you could get processing all the way through. And other products as well. What sort of engagement?
See, that's the advantage the youth have. Knowledge, exposure. They can easily go, as I say, I always refer to the internet and find out what is happening. Yes, a lot of them have actually started changing some of the things we do. Something like before, the kuli we ate was the one they carried on barrows, and sometimes when you see the area, you don't want to eat it. But now you go to regular hangouts, and the kuli is so nice. I'm like, I can't believe this is kuli. It's the young people changing all these things. So if we can push them, they don't have to do backward integration as the farming, but they can take the products of the farmers and add an extra layer to it. They can go to the supermarkets and look at the products there. Many of these products, we can do it. It's just to get the right machinery or the right processes.
But this time around, I'm talking about the private sector, or even if it's a, the private sector, and then having to interface or work with foreign partners, especially in areas of value addition. That's where my focus is, and I'd like you to highlight.
Before the foreign partners can come in, they have to make sure they can make money from you. So a lot of them are willing to come in, but also the scale. Many of these youths can't produce at the scale at which the foreign partners are going to be interested in coming in. So they have to start small and start building the business. Or they can come together, as the other speakers have said, in clusters. But they have to add a value for the people to be willing to come to take it. It's not going to be in the raw state. Or if they sell in the raw state, they're not going to make the maximum money.
And then that's where the infrastructure comes in, the technology and all of that. And you agree with me that has been the bane. Lots of young people want to go into, processing is the way. Yeah. I know someone who processes pap, lots of things that nobody was thinking about in the past. Now, how does a young person get the required technology to actually move the value chain to the point that somebody in China, in India gets interested?
Remember, these processing machines are highly expensive.
Absolutely.
But they don't have to start big. Some of these machines are fabricated here. So you could start small. But it's going to take something. Well, another thing why the young people don't like the agric sector is a lot of time. They're not going to get it in 1 year. Yeah. It's going to take time. It's going to take time for you to get that right machine that can do the right thing. That's some money, that's some time. But with agriculture, if you have the staying power and you're patient, you're going to make it. So they can't expect that they will be the big companies overnight, but they can start small. And there are lots of machine fabricators in the agric sector. There really are a lot of machine fabricators. So they can start working with the machine fabricators to find the ones that can make the machines for what they can do in a small scale. And from there, once there's market acceptability, it's now easier to scale up and to get partners to come with them.
Now, when someone has actually put it all together and it comes to the point of getting the required approvals, the NAFDAC and all of that, please can you tell me how easy it is to go through all that?
That won't pass me. That's one of the biggest problems we have in the agric sector. It's those government agencies. Exactly. Let me give you a practical example. Somebody produces rice, 50 kg rice. There's a different license for 50 kg. There's a different license for 40 kg. There's a different license for 10 kg. It's the same rice. I'm just putting them in different bags. Nothing has changed. And for each of the licenses, it's a different cost. While abroad, when they license you, they license the whole factory. So all your products have only one license. So even the paperwork for you is easier. The ones who are producing to export, they need only one permit for their whole factory. They certify the product, their factory. So everything coming out of your factory is certified because of that license. NAFDAC wants you to have one license for every product you make.
Do you think this is an intentional bottleneck?
It is an intentional bottleneck. So the government is double speaking. They tell you they're making business easier, but you're not reining in your agencies. Your agencies are making, my biggest problem, the biggest challenge I've had in this agric sector are the government agencies. I need them to get out of the way for me to do my business. And that's the way most of we agripreneurs think.
Okay, does it boil down to amending policies? What changes should we be making to encourage young people like Nkiru, who is actively involved in production, to make money for all who have trouble?
Yeah, she said something in one of her statements that we need a leader who has that young mind to understand what the young minds are thinking. For example, if you want to change the agencies or change the structure, you need those minds who are there before understand these processes and be able to tweak a couple of things that will make it easier for young agripreneurs to get things done easily and avoid those bottlenecks. And she's quite correct. I have a couple of friends that have developed a couple of things in terms of, let's say, branded rice, for example. And it took them years to just get NAFDAC approval. Years. And you can't go to market without having proper approval, unless you be thrown back or being sanctioned or something. So these are challenges that are actually affecting young agripreneurs today in Nigeria, which needs to be addressed as fast as possible if we want to grow. Unless we just remain static and young agripreneurs just be there, scouting for other avenues to make money and the rest, which is not good for us.
We do hope that the right things are done, and this is the right time to spotlight these issues because we are in an election season. Exactly. And we hope that the right people are listening. Thank you so much, Nkiru Obareke, CEO, Envirogo Farms, Soilless Greenhouse Farm in Lagos. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you as well, Akin Alabi, agribusiness coach, Corporate Farmers International, indeed a corporate farmer. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and that's all we can take. Sadly, on today's edition of Nigeria Decides, we've been talking about agriculture. Yes. I don't want to go hungry.
Absolutely, and that is why this is really important, because food remains the first basic thing that everyone needs. So we hope that the conversation has been very enlightening. Don't forget that you can drop us a message on any of our social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, at Plus TV Africa. Do join us again tomorrow on Nigeria Decides at 6 p.m. on Plus TV Africa. I am Ife Arono.
And I'm David Alabi. Many thanks for watching. Good evening.